This week, I'm talking about the worst motivational tactic you could use. Hi, I'm Potratz, and welcome to this week's Think Tank Tuesday. New tip, but a brand new lens. Check this lens out. It's really cool. It's vintage. So this week I'm talking about bad motivational tactics. We've probably all experienced it. So let's say that you have a brother or sister. Did your mom or your dad ever say, "Why can't you be more like your brother?" That's this tip that I'm really talking about, or this bad motivational tactic that I'm talking about. Just think about, how did it make you feel? Well, let me tell you how it made me feel. It seemed like it was yesterday, but it was years ago when I was starting my career as a salesperson, and I was so excited. I finally landed the job at a radio station that was one of the, well, it is the best known radio station in Knoxville, Tennessee. So excited to go in. I had this manager that I had so much respect for. I mean, he was dressed to the nines. He drove the Mercedes. It looked like he had everything going on. And it wasn't long. Actually, it was about 3 weeks before I didn't care for the guy anymore. I didn't respect him. He wasn't motivating. He wasn't uplifting. He was a grinder. He was a ball buster. He would use that tactic all the time, that we would be in a meeting. We'd be in our sales meeting in the morning that was actually very stressful. And he would always do that. "Gary, why can't you be more like Susie? Susie, why can't you be more like Mitzi?" And I would just sit there and take it all in, because he wasn't doing it to me, because I'd only been there for a few weeks. But I just remember being so motivated the first few weeks, and my motivation just started to die. But I put up with it. And then it wasn't long. I mean, I was there for 3 months, and then it starts with me. "Paul, why can't you be like Gary?" And I remember sitting there thinking, "Dude, what is your problem? I am not Gary." And again, I was a young guy, and I was able to see through it and understand exactly what did he need to be doing as a manager. And what he needed to be doing as a manager was saying, what is Paul's strengths and what is Paul's weaknesses? And as a manager, he needed to figure that out, and he needed to work that to the benefit of himself and the company, understanding what my strengths and weaknesses are. Bad motivational tactic? No doubt. So let me tell you how to change your motivation style so you can get the most out of individuals and also make them happy. Because, one of the things about sales meetings, the sales meeting should be uplifting. It should be exciting. It shouldn't be a negative Nancy where the salespeople are going in going, "I don't need to be coming to this sales meeting because you're paying me commission. You're wasting my time." And that's what happens if you motivate individuals that way. So how do you change the process? So here it is. This is how you're going to start motivating individuals. And it's not. The word is not individuals. You are going to motivate your team. And what I mean by motivate your team, like I said earlier in this video, understand the strengths and the weaknesses of every individual on your team. Now take those strengths and weaknesses of all the individuals and put them together as a team, understanding the strengths of each one of them and the weaknesses of each one of them. You pair them together, you pair them as a team, and you work to the benefit. So when you go into that sales meeting, you want to do things like comparing your team to some other team, and not a team that you manage, some other company. You want to create that excitement, that enthusiasm. I mean, basically what I'm saying is you want to become a coach of a football team. Boy, I wish I knew about football. I could name a team, but I can't. So the football team where they're saying, "All right, we're going to go out there and we're going to beat the Redskins versus the Rangers." You get my point. So you want to motivate your team as a team versus singling them out in a meeting and telling them you need to be more like so-and-so. And the same thing needs to happen when you get behind closed doors. When you get behind a closed door, you don't need to be going, "Gary, why aren't you more like Susie?" You want to understand what is Gary's strengths and weaknesses behind that closed door, and you want to help Gary be better. You don't want to pound on Gary. You don't want to grind Gary. You want to help Gary achieve his goals. He's going to respect you. He's not going to dislike you in 3 weeks. He's not going to resent you because you are helping him be successful. I mean, it's really simple. But here's where I made a huge mistake. And you're probably making the same mistake, or you have managers that are running your company that are making this mistake. In fact, I want you to share this video, like this video, and forward this video to them, because it's not their fault they made this mistake. And why they made this mistake is because they grew up and that's how their parents motivated them. Bobby, be more like Sally. I took that same stupidity into my management years for a number of years, that I started leading a group of salespeople at a radio station, and I'd be like, Nat, why can't you be more like Mary? And the reason that I did that is because I was managed that way, and I forgot to think for myself, thinking about how it made me feel and how it demotivated me. And the reason that I forgot to think for myself was because the company that I was working for was highly successful. They were selling a lot of radio advertising. They were making a lot of money. Everybody was driving nice cars. So for some reason in my subconscious, I felt like that was the way to manage people, because apparently it was working. Well, now we fast forward. I look back at that company in Knoxville, Tennessee. They've already sold 4 times. And they're not making 25% of what they used to make. And the reason is because they managed their team like that. Therefore, their team was not really a team. The individuals that were working there, every man for himself. It was cutthroat. They were scared to speak up. They didn't want to speak up because they were afraid that they would give somebody else on their team an advantage. And if they gave somebody an advantage, it meant that they would outdo them and they would get singled out in that meeting. I hope I'm making sense to you. But it's not a cutthroat business when you have a group of salespeople, a group of designers, a group of employees. I don't care what they do. Don't ever compare one child to the next or one employee to the next, because if you're doing that, you suck as a manager. Wait, before you go anywhere, you see how I'm wrinkling my forehead up? It's because I'm thinking so much. Forehead wrinkle means think. So one more tip. I want to give you one more tip that you definitely want to do, that I used to do, that was one of my signature tips. Actually, I'm going to give you 2. So the first signature tip that I had was that, and I learned this from bad managers, is I would start a meeting and I would close the door and lock it. Because if someone was late, they don't, even though my managers were always late for the sales meeting, they expected everybody to sit there and wait. So I would lock the door, and if someone came up late, I would have a meeting afterwards and I would just give them the, you know what I mean. That's a bad tip. The other tip that I learned from other managers was that I would go around, we'd be in a room or whatever it was, and we would be going over our reports and our numbers and that type of stuff. And if someone was not prepared in that meeting, what I would do is I'd say, Nate, stay afterwards. And then Nate would stay afterwards. I'm like, Nate, apparently you're not prepared today. Go ahead and pack up your stuff, go home, and think about what you're doing if you really want to be here. Those are such bad tips. If Nate's not prepared, that's not the way to handle it. So anyway, there's the tip. So now let me unwrinkle my forehead. All right, end of roll.